gather round, all you corpses, ghouls, and fiends. You're in for quite a treat. It's the most terrifying time of the week. It's time for the Cryptic Creepshow with your hosts,
Mary Mortem
and the very morbid Mark. Hey you guys, welcome to the Cryptic Creepshow for our second show. Today we're going to be talking horror in literature. This should be fun and interesting because, horror in literature is everywhere from poems, books, magazines, and it's an overlooked concept in the horror community. We all think movies, short stories, stuff like that, but this, I think, is something that we really need to focus on. I got Mary here, and she's going to come up with a couple things because we had a birthday last Monday.
We did. So on January 19th in 1809, Mr. Edgar Allan Poe was born, and he is one of the founding fathers of horror in literature, and he's one of my personal favorites. He had an interesting and tragic life, for lack of a better word. He died at the age of 40. So he died October 7th of 1849. We all know Poe from The Raven, Telltale Heart, all of that. But he actually was the first writer to introduce the detective murder mystery story. So that's one of the most famous things that he's done. And the other interesting thing about him is that nobody knows exactly how or why he died. There's still a lot of mystery surrounding his death. So he is one of my favorites, and today I wanted to go ahead in honor of him and read The Raven.
So we're going to have Mary reading The Raven to open this show up. So are you ready, Mary, to read The Raven to us?
I am.
Let me get a little ambiance music going here.
Okay. So once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volumes of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door, "only this, and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my book surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden who the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now to still the beating of my heart I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, this it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into the darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word Lenore, merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explored. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explored. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obstinance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mine lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, though my crest be shorn and shaven, though, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore, tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's plutonium shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevance bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door, with such a name as nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the pallid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, "Nevermore." Startled at the stillness broken by reply so abruptly spoken, "Doubtless," said I, "what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, from unmerciful disaster, followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burdened before, of never, nevermore." But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I willed a cushioned seat in front of the bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to leaking, fancy upon fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore, meant in croaking, "Nevermore." This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamp light gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamp light gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed by from unseen censer, swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. "Wretched," I cried thee, "thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there the balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if, with the distant Aden, it shall clasp a Satan maiden whom the angels named Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Be that word or sign of parting, bird or fiend," I shrieked upstarting, "get thee back into the tempest and the night's plutonium shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave thy loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off thy door." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted, nevermore.
All right, that was the Raven. So, Mary, tell me, why did you choose the Raven out of the two that we discussed? You reading The Raven and A Telltale Heart, I believe?
I chose The Raven because it's classic, and it's a poem, so it has a nice flow to it. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit easier to read. My personal favorite of Poe is The Black Cat, but that's a short story, so that takes a bit more time. But all the listeners out there, if you haven't read The Black Cat, I highly recommend it.
And let us know what you think of The Raven and all of Edgar Allan Poe's works on our Facebook page. So another thing I want to talk about real quick is Mary is actually an author herself, completing her first full-length novel. Why don't you tell us about this full-length novel?
So this is a project I started many years ago, and just with life and everything, I didn't get that far. But currently, with the support of friends like yourself, Marcus, I've been able to write a lot more. So the premise of the book is it's set in a small fictional American town called Diana Lagoon. And this town is being plagued by a demon who has a disguise as a human, and a bunch of murders, like brutal murders, show up in this small town, and the year is 1956, and these three friends try to figure out what's going on in their town, and they basically risk their lives to stop this hell demon from killing more people in their town and killing themselves, actually. They also become victims. So right now, I'm, I guess, on the downslope to finishing it. And once it's finished, I hope to do either self-publication or a Kickstarter. This book's very important to me because it is the first full-length story that I've written. I also will be dedicating it to my mom and dad. And my dad, he actually has stage 5 renal failure, so I don't know how long he'll be with us. I hope to get it published before then.
Well, I think I've read almost every chapter up to date. You're at chapter 18?
Yes, so I will be writing chapter 19. Yeah.
Sweet. And I have personally and luckily got to read every chapter. You guys are going to have to wait. And I give my little input on them to Mary. Sometimes she doesn't like it, and we fight over it. Sometimes it's good feedback. But it's really awesome to read it. It is actually a really compelling and good read. Kind of reminds me of old school Stephen King, Phil. And the demon is quite cunning in this book. So you guys will have to check it out when she releases it here soon. And shortly. I'll
also put a link if anybody's interested on our Facebook page. You can actually read chapters 1 through 5 in their entirety, and then I have excerpts from every single chapter. Since then, I didn't want to give it all away because then who would buy it?
Yeah, right.
Once
exactly.
It was done.
You can only give so much away.
So, but there's some juicy bits in there.
Oh, there are in the first 5. So, are there any other old school poets, writers, or anything from that same time period as Edgar Allan Poe that you would recommend to people? Since myself, I'm not really versed in the old school literature as you are.
That's right. So I read a lot more of the older horror literature. And I know you're more... I do want you to talk about the newer literature, though. So... my personal favorites is Washington Irving with his The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. That's one of my personal favorites. And it's not... that story is actually a lot more in-depth than any movie or cartoon would lead you to believe. So I would recommend that. And it's a short read. It's probably only like 150 pages or something. It's one of those things that little kids read during elementary school, so it can't be that long.
So let me ask you this. On that note, that book or that writing... has been redone and redone and redone so many times in movies and all this, and I've never actually read it. Is there any movie or rewrite of this that has capitalized and actually got it right? Or are they all kind of...
So Tim Burton came very close because the one thing that's always lacking about The Headless Horseman is the fact that he was a German soldier and that he was a Hessian. Which is one and the same, but Washington Irving actually spent a lot of time in the actual story discussing that, because at the time it was written, it was right after not right after, but it was shortly after the Revolutionary War, and so that was still on people's mind. The country was still new, so he delves a lot into that, and it again connects it back to American history, which I kind of spoke about on the last show, that I like that. So that, to me, was worth it. It also goes into more detail about who Brom Bones is and who Ichabod Crane is and who Katrina is. So it gives you a more well-rounded story rather than just this phantom that chases people in the middle of the night. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So other good ones are, of course, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Bram Stoker's Dracula. A word of warning, though, these are very wordy books, and they're written in old-style English. When I say that, I mean, think of William Shakespeare. Not quite that old
when
English.
When she says that, it means you need a master's degree in Old English to read these things.
Or you just need to be prepared to hear the same thing over and over again, just worded differently. Yeah. But they're both very good. They're very compelling books for their time. For example, Dracula had a lot of sexual annotations in it, which is very taboo for the time that it was written. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein had a lot of gore for the time period. She goes in to describe that Dr. Frankenstein would go into crypts at night and steal body parts and things like that. With those, the best adaptations of those two would have to be Bram Stoker's Dracula, with the exception of the Mina love story. That's kind of inferred when you read the book. It's not actually written out word for word. I think it's done better, personally.
Got you.
And then the one that Francis Ford Coppola produced that was directed by Kenneth Branagh, is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. That has to be the most accurate adaptation of that story to date as well.
So if you had a favorite era of horror literature, would it be this old 1800s, or are you more of a fan of the newer stuff? Like, or are you just well-versed and you like it all?
I kind of like it all. My personal favorite is, as cheesy as it may seem, but I really like young adult and kids stories. Simply
so
because,
like Goosebumps and stuff?
Well, not like Goosebumps, but there's actually a plethora of young adult horror out there. I like it because it's not a drawn-out story. There's not too much dialogue. It moves a lot faster, and you get a shorter story with just as much depth to it. And it's fun. It's something that, you don't have to explain why they're vampires. You're obviously in a children's story, so you don't need to go into the backstory of those things.
Yeah, they just need to know it is a vampire, and they know what it is.
Right, and they know they need to get rid of it. So
Yeah.
it's just, I like it for its simplicity. But I think out of all of it, I really like the ambience of the older literature, and also the fact that they left it up to the reader to invent the monsters. But with newer literature, I like how more action-packed it is and more fast-paced.
Yeah.
And a lot more gore and a lot more explanation about why somebody's doing what they're doing, or why this monster, happened to be, or why this house is possessed. So
For sure. Well, should we go to a commercial, well, not a commercial break, but a music break real quick, and then we will bring on a guest. We had him on last week, Eddie Rask, and he's going to break down some old horror comics. That's a whole subculture in itself. So we will be right back. welcome back, guys, to the Cryptic Creepshow. We're talking horror literature today. Real quick, though, on a side note, I want to just let you guys know The Boy came out this weekend. I went with our YouTube page, the Horror Junkies of Utah, to go see this, and damn, was it impressive. So I just want to give a little shout out to The Boy. You guys did a great job in making this film, and you literally terrified me in it. There was some different opinions, but you can jump on our YouTube page and go ahead and figure all those out. But
speaking of movies, before you go on, I just want to call out both Eddie and Marcus.
For what?
Because they gave me so much shit last week about the movies that I liked. I just want to tell y'all that The Witch was Rue Morgue's cover story. So fangirl that, bitches. Like, clearly I know to pick them.
Yeah, but I didn't get on Horror Hound, so.
Horror Hounds can lick my balls.
Oh, whatever. Fuck you guys. I love this magazine battle. Do you like Horror Hound, Rue Morgue, or Fangoria? What's your opinion? And let's do that real quick before we get into the comics section. We got 3 main horror movie, well, not horror movie, but horror magazine publishings. One of them being Horror Hound, Rue Morgue,
and Fangora.
Fangora. Now there's another one. I can't remember the name, but it's
there's famous
monsters.
Yeah, there's Famous Monsters.
But that one doesn't.
Well, because Famous Monsters has a long history, and so when they did it, it was for all the horror that was coming out at that time. So like your still Universal movies and like your Hammer horror and all of that, and it was just to appeal to those kids that grew up watching, you know, like Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff Saturday afternoons when they would rerun those. So Famous Monsters is a little bit different. It talks more about like the movies and like the creating the monsters and the collectibles and things like that. Whereas Fangora, Horror Hound, and Rue Morgue go over more of like culture and how it affects the society and things like that. So
for sure. So let's go with Eddie. What's your first pick?
Horror Hound. I love Horror Hound.
Mary.
I like Rue Morgue, and really they all have the same thing, but I like Rue Morgue for its aesthetic purposes, and it does like fun facts and like needful things and things like that that really appeal to me.
Gotcha. I got to go with it's a tie. It's a toss up between Fangoria and Horror Hound. I like Fangoria because it's got a lot of really good interviews with a lot of good filmmakers. Oh, yeah. But Horror Hound has a section dedicated every month to collectibles, and it's just fucking awesome. Yeah. I mean, I love looking at all the new action figures, and they do old. And they also do every month a let's go back to old filming locations, and they do before and after pictures. Yeah. I think that's really cool. I don't know if they do that in Rue Morgue or not.
Rue Morgue does a thing where they do travel destinations. So their writers go out to various
creepy places.
Yeah, creepy places or haunted places. For example, they went to Vlad the Impaler's castle in Transylvania. They've gone to apparently there's a place called Hell. It's some dinky city in the Midwest. I don't remember which state it was in.
It's also a website. Go to www.hell.com.
And I found out there's multiple towns named Hell, but I can't remember the one that they've done it. So they have, obviously they all have similar things. I guess just to each his own. Like for me, I like the graphics they use. I like the coloring. I like the setup. I like the main articles and things like that. So Rue Morgue is my read of choice.
All right, we got that out of the way. We're going to go on to horror comics. It's a huge subculture within the horror community. And, I mean, look at the most successful one right now, I would have to say, is The Walking Dead.
Yes.
I mean, it was a comic first. Now it is a TV series that has no foreseeable end. It's got spin-offs, Fear of the Walking Dead. They're just raking in the cash. AMC used to be this channel that had, you know, old school Western.
Yeah. Like, isn't it the American?
Yeah, I mean,
American Movie Channel.
Or like, yeah.
And what they used to do was Westerns and stuff. And then they always had that block in October set off to cover your Halloweens and everything. Yeah. And now they got The Walking Dead and Fear of the Walking Dead. They're like, screw that shit. We're making money hand over fist doing this. But so... getting into it, I mean, our comics, I'm not a huge comic reader, and I'm not going to cover a lot on this. I'm going to more ask the questions to these two. So, first question to you guys then is favorite horror comic to date. Let's go with Mary first.
I don't know if it's more or less considered a gothic comic more than a horror comic, but Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
Okay.
If you're out there and you've never read Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, stop what you're doing right now. Go to your nearest comic book shop and ask for this comic, because it's written by the same man who did Invader Zim. It was what he did before he did Invader Zim, and his name's Jonan Vasquez. He is not only a brilliant artist, but he is hilarious. There's just the most random shit in these comics, and he also does different comics within. Like, he has what's called filler comics, so you hear about other characters that's in the Johnny universe, and it's pretty gory, but it's hilarious and dark and disturbing and a lot of dark humor. I love it.
Sweet. So, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. Eddie, what is yours?
It's kind of interesting she brings up dark, disturbing, gory. Because what I'm about to talk about is the most graphic.
It's some fucking torture porn shit from like left field.
So anyways.
Banned in 38 countries.
So anyways, it's called Crossed, and it came out in 2008. And they have quite a few writers on it. But overall, the premise of the whole series, this Crossed, is that it's dealing with a pandemic and how the survivors are dealing with.
Bring this mic up closer to you.
So it's dealing with the survivors of the pandemic and everything, and how they're surviving this virus that it's like 20 days later, but the people have still their intelligence and everything, so they can talk, they can communicate. And pretty much what this virus does is it makes people commit the most evil thoughts in their head. So no, I'll have the
so like if I wanted to like throw a bunny in a wood chopper, I would just do it because of this virus.
A bunny in a wood chopper.
Well, I mean, in the book, for example, there's this guy.
You really want to do that?
No, I don't really want to do it. It was just the first horror thing that came to my mind.
I mean, they have some.
Where are bunnies in the woods? Where are you gonna have a wood chopper?
Well, I don't know. There's wood choppers on the side of my street and fucking Magna chopping down people.
It is ironic.
There's also bunnies in Magna, I'm sure.
Yeah, there are actually.
With the wood chipper, I mean, they put humans through wood chippers. I mean, they do all sorts of craziness in this comic book. I've actually loved the series. I think it's pretty awesome towards the horror and gore and everything.
So, do they actually come out and give the virus a name, or is it just bits and pieces here and there?
Bits and pieces here and there. You know, more when you get more in depth with the story, it tells more about it, what's going on with it.
And how many issues is it currently, or how many runs? Is it still on its original run, or has it gotten like an additional run?
I think it's got an additional run. I know originally, like, the first run was from 2008 to 2010. So,
okay, well, where can I pick up this crazy comic?
You can pick it up at the Nerd Store.
There we go. That's what I wanted to hear. Shout out to Charles Prowse. He's the owner of the Nerd Store. I first seen this comic book sitting in his store, picked it up, and I'm like, what the hell am I looking at? Like, the most perverse comic covers I've ever seen. So there we go. We got these two and their favorite comics. Me, since I don't read comics a lot, I'm just going to go with The Walking Dead. It's pretty interesting. So that's how lame I am. I don't have the Crossed or any of this crazy stuff. So next question to you guys. When did you first come across horror comics? Because when people think comic books, I think they think Batman, Superman, this stuff. When did you guys actually discover that horror comics was a thing?
Well, mine was my first like horror comic, and I actually made a connection with horror comics was, I was at the DI and I was able to get the Creepshow comic.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was at the DI?
I found the Lost Lost Boys soundtrack on vinyl at the Salvation Army for 50 cents.
Man, I need to
Made
start
my
going
day,
through
man.
this stuff.
Yeah.
You do.
I go into the DI, I look at their tables, I'm like, all these suck, and I leave.
No, man, you get some gems from the DI and
So when I picked
shops.
that up and took it home and started reading, I was hooked. And that's when I started asking my uncle.
The LDS
And-
church is like, we have to search through all our stuff more efficiently now and not let this garbage in.
And so I was asking our uncle about it, about horror comics. He gave me an entrance to it. And then, just asking people at the comic book store.
Okay, Mary, what about you?
I think it was either probably watching Tales from the Crypt or just picking up from somewhere that they existed. I remember basically whenever I went into a comic shop, I would specifically look to see if they had horror comics. And really what I was looking for is those great graphics that Tales from the Crypt had, where it would say terror on the sidebar, and then it'd have these bubbles of like faces.
You'd have the witch, the
Yeah.
crypt keeper, and
The Vault Keeper.
the vault keeper. Yep.
Yeah. So I think I just always knew they existed, and because I loved Halloween so much growing up, I think I just kind of searched for them. Of course, I didn't acquire any until I was an adult, but I always knew they existed.
Yeah, I came into horror comics really late. Like, I always knew there was the Tales from the Crypt, obviously. That's one kind of given. And then The Walking Dead, I figured out it was a comic book. And then I was, like, in the library. I was like, man, it's amazing. Like, the Salt Lake County Library. It's amazing how many horror comics there are. There's 30 Days a Night, 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later. All these that have been, either their movie to comics or in 30 Days of Night's case, I think it was a comic to a movie.
I think it was actually a graphic novel to a
graphic
movie,
novel.
and then they went back to I think
Comics,
book
like
or
doing
graphic.
issues.
Yeah, or they're doing graphic novel issues. It's interesting that you mentioned that as well, because a lot of comic books have been sequels to horror movies. Like if there's a horror movie out there, you could probably Google it and find a comic book series, because that is something that has such a large following, and the production cost is a lot less. Especially when you get any type of comic company to sign on. Obviously not like Marvel or DC, but some of the smaller ones like Black Horse Comics. And Black Horse actually caters to horror and gothic and dark humor and things like that. So if that's your liking, if you're one of those people who like reading comics and you like a lot of the dark humor and things, check out Dark Horse Comics if you haven't already, because that's pretty much all they do.
Yeah, I'm going to throw another one in there. It's called Dead Dog Comics. They do the Night of the Living Dead series and a bunch of others that I've actually acquired. There was like a nerd swap not too long ago at the Bohemian.
Yeah.
And there was a couple horror comic vendors there, and they had a ton of stuff. So really cool subculture. Do you guys have anything else to say about horror comics?
I do want to mention just the Tales from the Crypt and also the Elvira comics. So with the
Elvira comics.
Elvira had a run of comics. So when she originally premiered in the 80s, she also had comics that came out as well. And now that she has gained back her popularity and she is relaunching, her horror host show was relaunched. She actually started up the comic books again. So she's had a couple runs of those. And if you are an Elvira fan and you don't know what the comics are, I'm surprised, but you should. So you need to go check those out as well.
Marcus here is not an Elvira fan. How old is Elvira right now?
I'd have to Google it, but
Who
I
cares?
think
She
she's
gets
in her
better with
Oh,
age.
right. I think she's in her 60s. However old she is, she's
All you care about is them titties, man. So you just shut up.
Well, I will say that she's definitely a gilf. That's for sure.
Like the fuck.
So, and I would ask anyone to try to. She was born in 1951, so that would make her
I'm not.
in her 60s
Well,
at some
God.
point. Obviously, I can't do math.
Yeah, none of us are mathematicians in here, or even graduates of basic algebra, it seems. Real quick, Eddie. I want to ask you a question, since you're an avid reader of the Walking Dead comics, and the Walking Dead is relaunching February 23rd, I believe that's the date.
February 13th.
February 13th. Okay. What do you think is going to happen based on your perception? You've read the comics forward and you know the story with Negan and everything.
Yeah.
What do you think the TV series is going to follow that, or?
Honestly, I think they'll follow some of it, but they're definitely go in their own direction with it. Because if they just went with what the comics books did, it'd be so predictable, and people would be spoiling. The comic book readers would be spoiling the show for the people,
the viewers, the general viewers.
Yeah, so I think it's gonna be awesome that Negan's finally coming into play because everybody thought the governor was crazy.
Negan
takes
is a
whole
nutshell.
level.
Yeah.
And I knew Glenn wasn't dead. I was like, he isn't die, I was like, Negan has to.
Yeah, Negan has to have his spoiler alert day on Glenn in the comics, but I don't think that's how they're going to follow it in the TV series.
Yeah, they won't. They won't. They'll do something different.
Well, sweet. Any little last bits on horror comics? I think we got.
No, do you have anything to add?
Just
Eddie?
check it out. It's a great
thing.
It's
a subculture within
If you love horror movies and all that, you love horror comics.
And also
it's a great way to read.
Yeah, also if you're if you like the art style, for example, Jonan Vasquez, he hides a lot of interesting little doodles in the actual comics and the little boxes and things like that. Same thing with Jill Thompson. She's the author of Scary Godmother, which is a really cute, obviously it's geared towards children, but it's a really cute comic book series, and she does a lot of things that are really just cute if you just stop and look at it. So even if you're not that much of a reader but you enjoy art, it definitely is good for you as well, because then there's not too much reading but you get a lot of cool pictures.
Do you guys like the Trick or Treat comics?
I haven't checked them out, but I love Trick or Treat, so I'm going to say yes.
She's like, I don't care.
I don't care.
My buddy Craig, he loaned me one of their books, and I actually enjoyed it. It had some really good stories. There was a few stories I was like, it's okay.
That's how that whole movie started out, was a short.
Yeah.
It was a short animation from Michael Dougherty.
That animation is, you can see it in special features on the Trick or Treat DVD or Blu-ray. And a lot of people, I'm not going to say layman people, but people just buy the DVDs or Blu-rays, and not a lot of people explore your special features anymore.
Right.
So if that's one you've missed, go watch it because it's excellent, right?
Oh, yeah,
it's amazing, especially that he did it in such almost like a rough draft style.
Yeah,
because there's not a lot of fine lines, and it's almost like a hand doodle sketch.
Yeah, it looks
which
very
I like.
penciled in type stuff.
And it's also, dare I say, it's much more disturbing as a cartoon than as a movie to see this little trick-or-treater, he doesn't, and again, he does that thing that classic comics do or classic literature do, where they make the reader infer. So you'll see one scene where Sam will go off with his bag and a knife, and then you don't get anything, and then he comes back and the bag is full and it's all bloody. So something awesome took place, but it's up to you to imagine what it was.
Yes, it is. So that is your horror comics in a nutshell, we'll say. Let's move on to some more current literature. We've covered our old Gothic. I don't know. What would you call it, Mary?
Gothic is a good one, but I would just say classic horror literature because it's the classic authors.
Okay. Let's move on to some more current stuff. Favorite current authors. You guys have any?
Do you have one, Eddie?
We all know mine, man. I only do a damn book review every month on him.
I would have to say Stephen King.
Oh, you can't steal mine. Go somewhere else.
What about, oh my gosh. Why? I Am Legend. What's his name? Richard Matheson.
He's a great author, but I love Stephen King.
Have you read I Am Legend?
I haven't.
You need to read it.
I know. There's a lot of books that I've been needing to read, and I haven't.
I Am Legend is a classic, and I love Richard Matheson and what he did with it, because he was able to take a novel that was literally written in the 50s, but it applies to any time period. I mean, serious. It works. I am. First time I read it was 2015, and it fit. I didn't feel like I was reading a book from the 50s. And the other cool thing is, a lot of people don't understand that I Am Legend is a actual short story book.
Right.
So you got I Am Legend is I would consider it a novella or whatever they call them.
Right.
It's like 150 pages. And then the rest of the book is a bunch of other short stories he does. And there's some pretty credible ones in there that I really enjoyed.
There's a lot of, if you go to any bookstore and you go into like the horror section, assuming they have one, you'll find so many compilation books because there's so many publishing companies, both that cater to horror genre and those that don't, that will constantly run issues of compilation books where they'll have famous writers like Stephen King or Richard Matheson or any of the other more well-known, more popular ones, just have them sit down and write, or Dean Koontz for that matter, and write a short story, and then they'll put them all in this book. So if you like the shorter stories, that's definitely the way to go. And then, of course, there's billions upon billions of horror series.
Oh, yeah.
And sure. Even for that example, like even things that you thought weren't going to be serious, like The Shining, I mean, 40 years later, he ended up writing a sequel about Danny from The Shining.
Yeah, what is that?
Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep, there we go.
Right, and
I have
apparently
yet to read that one, but...
Yeah, it's when Dan grows up, and he's like his father's age almost, I think, when this story takes place.
So I guess we have two Stephen King fans over here. Current writer.
So for a current writer, I'm going to go with David Wellington. He does a lot of horror genre series. How I found out about him was a little series called 13 Bullets, or the Laura Caxton series. So the premise behind these books is that vampires are real, and they exist. They have existed since the dawn of time, essentially. And the government has a special FBI unit to cover vampires up so that no one knows that they actually exist, but they do.
Is Dana Scully in this unit?
No, but there's... So it begins... It has like a prologue, and it begins in the 80s where you see the main... I can't even remember his name. It's been so long since I've read the book. But your main FBI agent trying to locate this vampire. And then you fast forward to present day, which I think the book was written in 2007.
Okay.
I want to say. So you fast forward to present day 2007, and there is a female state trooper who finds a car where like these bodies are mutilated, and this FBI agent from the prologue comes in, and he ends up partnering up with Laura Caxton, who is the trooper, and they go out and hunt vampires together. And it does. The reason why I liked it is because it stepped away from a lot of those traditional vampire legends, and it did more unique things with it. And it's also just really well written, and you get some very interesting characters as well.
I've yet to read any David Wellington, so I'm looking him up right now. Do you have any other suggestions?
He does. He has one about werewolves that I think is called Frostbite. And then he also has one called Monster Island. Monster Island, I'm not entirely sure if that's monsters or zombies. I have yet to read it. The 13 Bullets also does an interesting thing where the second book revolves around the Civil War. So they tie that into American history, and he does it really well. That's my favorite book of the series. But if you're looking for a good vampire novel and you're kind of tired of what's out there, or you're not prepared to make that commitment and read Anne Rice, definitely,
I can't stand.
Definitely check out David Wellington.
There's my reasons I don't like Anne Rice. I used to like her, but then she had her whole awakening to Jesus, right?
Right.
And
now she's like, back in vampires.
See what was weird, too,
she's a flip-flopper, man.
She goes by another name, too, as a writer.
For like her
pen name or whatever.
Her naughty novels, her Harlequin romance
her
novels.
BDSM, I'm going to tie you to the dam.
Right. Her 50 Shades of Trash.
Have you guys read any Dean Koontz?
I've read two of his books.
I don't think I've read any of his books, but I've seen some of his movie adaptations for his books.
The way I would describe Dean Koontz is take Stephen King and take all the filler out of it.
So it's just murder upon murder and weird
it's
shit
just
happening.
way more fast paced. You know, Stephen King, if you read the Dark Tower series, he pretty much says because he's a written character in it, I write books by the page because that's how you get paid. The bigger the book, the more you get paid. Blah blah blah. But Dean Koontz, I think, he's not as descriptive in setting the scene, so things move faster. So I think some people have a little problem with Stephen King because they're like, oh God, he's like J.R.R. Tolkien, man. He spends a chapter on a house or a hat or this or that. if you like the horror stuff and you like what Stephen King does, but you don't like that very descriptive feel that he puts on there, go with Dean Koontz. Or I've yet to read, but my buddy Craig keeps telling me read Joe Hill, which is Stephen King's son.
See, I didn't even know that King's son had already started writing things. So that's interesting to find out.
That Stephen King's son?
Yeah,
he wrote Nosferatu.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, this new Nosferatu album. He's actually got a comic series out based on Nosferatu, the book, I believe. He's got a couple pieces of work out there.
That's interesting. I had no idea.
So, yeah. And then, real quick, I want to touch on this. Have you guys read any of Max Brooks' stuff?
So I haven't read them, but I had seen interviews with him and heard a lot of things about it. He is actually Mel Brooks' son.
Really?
Yes. So he, and he has, of course, the Zombie Survival Guide.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also has another one. What's the second book called? I forget.
World War Z.
World War Z. Okay, yeah that's what
I've
it is.
read World War Z.
So people apparently really like it. It was funny because when I saw him on the interview, he said that he didn't think that people would actually buy the book. He just wanted to
World
do
War
it,
Z
or the Survival Guide, because that was his first publication.
Yeah.
So when he wrote it, he was, he wanted to do it as kind of satire type of thing, but also with a lot of logic behind it. Like he really took time to explore the zombie genre and what we could do if that actually happened. And so he did this survival guide, not thinking that it was really going to be published. And then a few weeks later, it was like on the New York bestseller list, and he was totally shocked by it because he didn't think that people would that people would like it that much or take it that seriously.
Next thing he knows, he's got checks coming in the mail
because he wasn't wealthy before, having a dad like Mel Brooks.
Yeah, but still, his daddy was getting the money before,
right?
Did you read World War Z?
I did not. I did see the movie, though. And
when I heard there was a movie coming out based on World War Z, the novel, I was like, how?
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically when I look at the book to movie adaptation of this, I'm like, you basically borrowed the title and
bought the title.
Yeah, and put a couple tad bits in there, because in the book, it's a UN reporter that's going around and he's interviewing people on their experiences.
Yeah.
So in the same aspect in the movie, it's a UN special agent guy going around trying to solve the mystery of the virus. Not saying that I didn't like the movie. I actually really enjoyed the movie and its premise on how the virus can detect other viruses within people. It just wasn't the book at all. Like, if you've seen the movie and haven't read the book, go read the book, because you're going to get this almost like... It's like you're reading a newspaper, kind of, on everything that happened.
Reports going on.
Yeah.
It sounds like it would have been better that way, personally.
To do the movie that way?
To do the movie as, like, just a reporter going around and, like, maybe do, like, shots of different reports. I think that would have been an interesting premise. That's actually... Bram Stoker's Dracula is actually written that way. It's actually all letters.
Oh, really?
There's not actually a story. It's all letters from the characters' perspectives. So you have letters from Jonathan Harker to Mina, and from Mina to Jonathan, and from Mina to Lucy. And you piece together the story essentially by all these letters. There are interactions within the letters, but it's someone recounting what had happened earlier in the day. It's not like you see a letter and then you go into like live present day. It's all through letters, which is kind of interesting. I think I would have liked the movie better if it was that way. If it was just a UN reporter interviewing people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a lot of the reports that they do that they actually, in the movie, they put scenes like, the whole escape from the big city.
Mm-hmm.
I would contribute that to a chapter in the book that I'm forgetting the name now, but it's like a chapter, the big, huge, he's interviewing like an infantry soldier and what happened originally type thing. But they do take ideas from the book and throw them into the movie, but it's, all in all, when you put them side by side,
they're totally different things.
They're not.
Yeah. Sometimes I think horror stories are best left to the books, because they give you so much more in actually reading it. And I think there's also... when you read, you get more engaged. At least I feel that I do. I get way more engaged reading a story than watching things happen on a screen. because you're actually using your brain to formulate what's happening. So a lot of writers will build on that, which makes it a lot more scarier than anything they do in a movie.
So the most popular way, I think, is you read the book first, watch the movie.
I think that's the correct way to do it. I think the popular way is, hey, there's a movie that I never knew was a book, and now I'm going to go read the book.
Okay, so I might be wrong, but the way I do it is usually I'll read the book, watch the movie. There have been times where I have seen the movie, now I'm reading the book. One of them is Misery right now. Mm-hmm. I've seen the movie, I'm reading the book. It's similar, but the thing that I hate is when I read books, I love to create the imagery of the character in my head. And I cannot create Annie Wilkes without having Kathy Bates.
That's
I'm like reading the book and I see Kathy Bates and I'm like, damn it, I want to create my own, but she's just there.
That's funny that you say that, because I think that's the curse, that once it is on screen, you can never take that image back unless you already had a pre-made image of someone. Mm-hmm. And I always, when I read a book, I know what the characters look like in my head, and it's always disappointing when you go to a movie and you don't see that the character looked like you thought it would. You're just like, that doesn't look right.
That was me when I read The Mist, and then I watched the movie and I'm like, really? Yeah. I'd rather have my version in there. What is this guy? Get him out of here.
Yeah, that movie had some strange...
That movie has one of the best endings
That's like
ever.
That movie has a terrible ending.
Number
awesome.
one ending.
Awesome
man,
ending.
it's so... You feel for the guy. You're just like, like...
Have you read The Mist, the novel?
Mm-mm.
Or novella? It's actually a novella, and it's actually, I think it's in Skeleton Crew. It's a short story. But yeah, the novel ends, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but flatly, where the movie
Well, so does
ends,
the movie kind of ends flatly.
But with such epic, like, I never seen that coming.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I enjoyed about it.
Oh,
you're just like, wow, did that really just
movie
go
kills
down?
Well, do you guys want to go to a little music break real quick?
Absolutely. And when we come back, we're going to bring in the lovely Tracy from Horror Junkies to discuss adaptations from books to movies. She's going to give us her input on that as well.
Okay, we'll be back shortly.
Seems the purpose of the life is to defeat it, and all our ugliness under our skin we hide. We're not at peace until the fate and suicide. Is this good enough for you? Torn you right in two. Leave me alone and I know you're strong, and I think you smile 'cause your hope is gone. Denial is a key, you can be like me. Fate is the start of the last
welcome back, guys. So we just listened to A Condescending Lullaby by Hour 13, and before that, we had Decidal Carnage is the name of the band, and the song was Impelled Upon the Altar. So if you're interested in either of those bands, that's who they are.
Sweet. Well, so we're back, and we're going to talk about horror movies that have been books, so the book to movie adaptations. And we have a special guest that I work with almost every weekend.
Hey guys, it's Tracy.
Tracy from the
Tracy.
Horror Junkies of Utah. So I got basically my whole Horror Junkies career. I got Tracy, Eddie, myself, and Desiree running the soundboard out back. We're just missing Craig. He's working, massaging people right now. So let's talk about this. First off, let's all kind of go through. We'll start with Mary, if you want, and let's go with your favorite horror movie that was a book to start off.
That was a book to start off?
Yep.
I'm going to go with The Exorcist. I haven't had an opportunity to read too much of the book, but I know that it's, well, as you said, it's almost word for word, and The Exorcist has done so well, especially for what they were trying to do, that I'm going to have to say that's my favorite.
Gotcha. So we got The Exorcist. Oh, mine, I'm going to have to say, it's a tough one, but I really love The Mist. That was for such a short story, and the way it was presented, and the movie adaptation, it was just wonderful.
It's a very frustrating movie ending, but...
Why? Okay, spoiler alert, in the ending, I gotta solve this little issue we're having here. Why was it frustrating? Because
you feel for the guy. You're just like, you went through all of that. Oh,
okay,
like it's
please explain.
So, do you really want me to spoil it?
Yeah. So spoiler alert.
Okay.
If you do not want to know what's going on in the ending of The Mist, the movie, turn the volume down for about a minute. So go ahead.
So the main character, it's him and his son that are trying to survive this alien infestation of these weird, crazy, mutilating things. And at the end, it comes to a point where they're not going to evacuate the town, so they're just going to all commit suicide. Him and this little group he's got going. And he has to kill everyone in the group, including his son, only to find out that there wasn't enough bullets for him. And he gets out of the car expecting to get taken by one of the monsters, and then boom, the army rolls in and the town was saved. And it's so like, are you joking right now? Like, who's gonna live a life after that?
You know, I love that, though, because it comes to the point of where we as humans tend to give up quickly on things. And what it's showing to me is, like, always keep pressing forward, always keep going. If he would have just waited a little longer without, let's all kill ourselves, they would have been saved. But no, he's like, I don't want my son to get eaten by a monster.
But
I'm going to kill him.
At the same time, though, they saw some freaky ass shit. And they couldn't
Well, I
go
can't
anywhere.
put myself in their position. I mean, they got monsters that are like the size of buildings.
And see, I totally understood why they got to that point. There was like creepy tentacle things that like ate your face off. And, like, acid or spiders that shot acid out of their ass. Like, I would probably be like, yeah, suicide's looking pretty good right about now. So I really empathized with him, and it was so frustrating.
Well, so there we go. That was
Sorry
the
for
Mist
ruining it,
ending.
folks.
The book ending, I'm going to give you real quick, is not anywhere near that. Basically, he writes a note and leaves it in a gas station for someone to find, and you read the note, and it's pretty much, we're going to keep trugging along, we're going to go as far as we can, and then it just ends very flat. Nothing. That's it.
Oh, so there's no, like...
There's no ending. You almost have to make it up in your mind.
That's even worse, because then there's no resolution.
There is no
resolution. That's like going
resolution.
to a nice dinner and then being like, I'm sorry, we're out of dessert. Like,
Yeah.
no!
Yeah.
That doesn't work. So, Eddie, what's your favorite movie or book to movie adaptation?
Hang on a second. So, I think we got Daniel listening to us, and he just gave me a little tidbit here. He said, it was not, and yes, spoiler alert, the ending is what made that movie so good. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for agreeing there.
I'm not saying it isn't good. I said it was frustrating is what I said.
All right.
For me, it would have to be Christine.
Great choice.
I love Christine.
Classic
Great
Stephen
choice.
King.
I mean, that book, the movie, both just stellar. I mean, you can't go wrong, you know?
You really, a killer car that loves its owner, that's a female, you
I
really
know.
can't.
And Arnie's just like, it's just me and you.
Arnie Cunningham. I think that's what he's called in the movie. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I love Christine. I love
Yeah.
the fact that a car can become such an iconic character.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just...
I loved that people were like, it's one of those things where no matter who you speak with, you're like, oh, have you seen Christine? No, what's that? I'm like, you've never seen Christine? Like, it's a Stephen King.
It's an awesome movie.
Like, it's awesome.
And then it was redone by a epic director.
Yep.
Mr. John Carpenter.
My favorite part is when they're gonna cars in the shop and they're gonna like take a shit on the dashboard or whatever. And Christine like fucks all of those guys up, and I'm like, you go, girl, you go.
So Daniel answered this thing for me real quick. His favorite book to movie adaptation is The Shining, but the miniseries by Mick Garris.
I want to stop and talk about that for a second because the miniseries adaptation is far better in terms of adapting to the book. But I think in terms of scariness and emotion, you have to go with the Stanley Kubrick version.
Stephen King was hating
No,
on that movie.
But Kubrick hated King too because when they
How did they come about even making this movie then?
because so
I hate you. Don't make my shit.
King wanted it to be made into a movie, and Kubrick picked it up. But Kubrick didn't like Steve's directives. Basically, they got into a lot of creative differences because Kubrick wanted to take it into that weird place that he's known for, and Stephen King wanted to keep it more true to his novel. And so they parted ways, and King didn't end up working on it. And Kubrick, I think, wrote the script as well. But when they're on their way up the Sidewinder, when the cook comes to save them and he goes up the Sidewinder and there's a beetle that's gone off the road, that's actually Kubrick saying fuck you to Stephen King because it's a yellow bug, and in the movie it was actually, or not the movie, the book, it was actually a red bug. So that was his way of being like, fuck you, Stephen King, I still did this to your book and to your script.
And now Stephen King, like, it has to have his approval.
Yeah,
before.
that's why he always writes all his screenplays for all of his adaptations, is for that reason, because he feels like he got totally fucked over by Kubrick.
I'm pretty excited for the next one that's in the works. I mean, we have It coming up. That's a remake of a movie, of a book.
Yeah.
But supposedly they're going to remake Cell. And if you don't understand Cell, it's an apocalyptic movie that starts with a cell phone call to everyone in the world. I have yet to read that book too. I read the back synopsis. I was like, this seems very interesting. I put it on the shelf, never bought it. Now I can't find the damn book anywhere.
You're going to have to Amazon that
Yep,
shit.
Amazon. So Tracy,
Yes, sir.
what would be your favorite movie that was originally a book?
I'm gonna have to go with another Stephen King movie.
Damn. We're just on the roll, Stephen King.
Or Stephen King book, I'm sorry. Carrie.
Carrie.
His first book.
Okay,
I
so
thought...
hang on real quick. Let's clarify. Carrie 2013?
Nope,
So the
garbage.
1970s.
She's not a fan.
That one. The one with Sissy Spacek. So I thought that the book to movie... My only gripe about... I enjoyed the movie more than the book based on how he described Carrie and her physical attributes, because in the book she's kind of a chubbier, overweight girl with zits and stuff all over her face, and in the movie she's the beautiful Sissy Spacek but has kind of the dumpier looking girl. So,
Trailer park type person?
no, not trailer park.
Not saying it's bad if you live in a trailer park. Fuck, I live in Magna, so I can't talk.
So, but other than that, that's definitely my favorite thing. I thought that the movie outdid the book just in the physical attributes of how they did Carrie.
And the fact that John Travolta was in it as well.
Oh, of course.
Oh, God.
It's young John Travolta. That's all I'm going to say.
Coming from a guy who's never seen Grease, you know.
Me?
Yeah, didn't you say you've never seen that?
No, I haven't. Why the hell would I watch that fucking movie?
You'll
It's
love John
awesome.
Travolta after that. I
Right.
Okay, so this isn't
Because Grease Lightning, that's why.
this isn't the Cryptic Creep Show anymore. This is the Greaser Show.
I thought I'd throw that in there.
I don't even know where to go with this now. Okay, we're talking about Grease.
Well, for a moment, only because that's an actor that's done both musicals and horror movies, which I don't think there's a lot of actors out there that have done both.
No, I think you're right. I don't think there is.
So that makes John Travolta special. Hence why we mentioned Grease, because it's amazing.
Can I mention something real quick since you mentioned musical?
Yes.
Have any of you guys seen Repo, the genetic opera?
Yeah,
I've heard the soundtrack. I haven't actually seen
it's a
the
great movie. I like it.
But
It's a
the
crazy movie.
premise is really strange. Incidentally, did you also know that Mel Brooks wrote a musical for Young Frankenstein?
Didn't know that.
It's amazing. They have a one song that Frau Brooker does for He Was My Boyfriend, and it's awesome. If you ever get the chance, I highly recommend it. They Salt Lake Community College did a run of it just this past Halloween. The Empress Theater in Magna has also done a run of it before. So keep your ears peeled if you hear of like a school or any type of like local establishment putting it on. You need to go see it because you will probably pee your pants. It's that amazing and that hilarious.
Real quick, so let's talk about this. We're talking about horror and literature and everything. Where do you guys get your horror novels?
The library. Just kidding.
Is that where you get
No,
them?
I really do get them from the library. Because I don't want to invest like $20 in a book if it's crappy. Like,
What about you, Eddie?
A lot of times I'll go to the thrift stores, DI. You know, usually
There's
tons
a
of
there's
those
a
places.
thrift store type bookstore I want to give a shout out to right now, and it's on Main Street. It's like Main Street and 533 north or south. I don't know. It's Books
I
on
think
Main.
South. It
And
says south.
You can go there and you can. This is where I buy almost all of my horror books because they're like 75 cents straight up. And
nice.
they're shitty versions, but man, I mean, I screw my books up anyways. You know, you've been in the spine and
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
So that's where I would pick up my horror books. Just
Yeah,
to let
I
you
don't
know.
do that because I like to collect my books and to show them like trophies. Like, look at all the words I've read.
This is
No
the first
way,
edition.
because I constantly in my.
I think Marcus gave up on it after his dog brutalized him.
Yo, let's not go with this story, okay?
Damn it, Gizmo.
All right, I guess I have to say this story. Des, real quick, how much did that book cost? I know you're out there, but throw up a number for me. $300. Okay, so I got a mint version of Halloween, the novel, perfect condition, sealed and everything. And I'm starting to read this. I don't even want to open the book because I don't want to compromise the spine or anything at all. I'm just like, oh
You have
god.
like gloves on.
Seriously,
Like
I
gloves.
am literally
Goggles,
I am literally
masks.
treating this book like that, and I'm like, like when I'm reading it like this. I'm like peeking around the corner of the page, like, okay, next, like not wanting to fully open the book. So me and my wife, we go out on a date night, and I leave the book on a mantelpiece, and my little Shih Tzu, out of all of the things he could chew in the room, cables, guitars, anything, I wouldn't have cared. I come home and my book is just slobbered on, the corners chewed off. It's went from $300 to 30 cents overnight. And now I read it like just opening the pages, whatever. I don't give a shit. Do you guys have any books or any collectibles like that are like in mint crisp condition that you just don't want to open or look at?
Probably for me would have to be my signed Fluce poster.
Poster? What about you?
I have the I Feel Sick comics, which is a spin-off of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. Those damn comics took me and I'm not joking when I say this, but it took me literally like 10 years to find them because they were out of print. And I found them up in this comic book shop in Ogden, and I wish I could remember the name, but that's where I found them, and I was so stoked. And so I have them now, and they're in their little sheet and everything, and I've read them once, and I'm like, oh, they're so pristine, and I have to keep them this way, because I searched for them forever. But I also have fun books like the Trick or Treat Companion book that they put out when the movie went to DVD, and then also, like, I have an Edgar Allan Poe, like, side companion that has, like, artifacts of, like, old pictures of him and letters and things. Because I like that kind of crap. I like to collect it and have it. It's fun.
For sure. Tracy, anything?
I don't really have a huge selection of
collectible
horror novels.
Well, I mean, just anything in general. Like, do you have any little prized possession in your little collection that's like that thing that don't touch that?
It's like the whole.
I have a lot of things that are like, don't touch that. No, right off the top of my head, I can't think of it.
So pretty much everything in your damn room is don't touch that. That's mine. Okay, well, what about we can't skip horror literature without talking about Goosebumps?
No, I don't think we can. Or for that matter, I'm gonna go a little bit more old school because I think me and Eddie are probably the oldest people in this room. But
well, hang on. What year were you born?
I was born in 85.
85.
Yeah.
What month?
I was born in May.
July.
Oh,
you're the oldest one.
I'm so old. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Hang on. That's being remade.
Well,
it's a rumor.
So it's actually, it's never been an actual movie. It's had a couple publications. It's now... Guillermo, help me out.
Del Toro.
Yeah,
I can't say his damn name, man. We did a review
Guillermo
on that. I
del
couldn't
Toro.
do it.
He's actually considering picking it up and doing it. Which, if he does, great. But I don't want him to disappoint me again, like he did with Crimson Peak. So if he does it, I want it to be done well. And the scariest thing about those books are the creepy ass artwork, because every pencil stroke of that art is like blood dripping, and I read those books, I think, for the first time when I was 8 was when they came out. So being a little 8-year-old reading things, like, I could handle the stories, no problem. But those pictures, man. I couldn't even, have the book open next to my bed. I had to, flip it over and, cover it so I didn't see the creepy-ass skull and, something from the book was going to come get me growing up. So that's an honorable mention for sure. I think there's a huge following for those books.
Oh, yeah.
As there should be, because they're amazing.
And now it's going to be an explosive trend thing that there's this rumor or that he's expressed interest. Now people are probably renting and buying that stuff off Amazon.
But if the right companies back it up, you know what I mean? Like if Hot Topic gets on that, that's just going to be downhill from there. But if a company like Iron Fist or Rebel Circus or Sourpuss or all of those better companies catch hold of it, we might get some cool stuff, like some sweet t-shirts or something.
Yeah. Sorry for all you Hot Topic fans, but we're just...
Not that Hot Topic's bad. I'm just saying if you want quality stuff, that's not the place that's unique. Don't go to Hot Topic.
So are you comparing Hot Topics like the Walmart of the
subculture?
Subculture.
Yeah. I'm gonna go and you know what, Walmart. If I need black hair dye and I'm in a pinch, I'm gonna go to Hot Topic and pick that shit up because I know they have it. If I'm looking for a Halloween 3 t-shirt, Hot Topic's not going to be the place I go.
Exactly.
No, and then they'll probably put Halloween 2.
Or fucking glitter on the masks and shit.
Yeah,
embedded
it's so
forever.
I
sweet.
don't know how many metal shirts they've messed up.
Well,
right.
I would like to know who their actual printer is, but I don't.
Different vendors and stuff.
Yeah. But sadly, that's kind of with me. If I'm in a bind and I need something that's off the wall, I'll go to Hot Topic or Spencer's, but they're really kind of the Walmart cheap quality.
They are, and it's not well done. I think I've had more stuff fall apart from those places than actual Walmart, so that's saying something.
It is. So, favorite Goosebump book? Come on, we've all read a Goosebump book.
I like the create your own scary story books that they did.
Oh, where you had a choice on okay, so now go to page 81.
Right. So are you going to enter the dark room or go back to the kitchen? And like, I'm gonna enter the dark room, turn to page 80. Ah, there was a rat in it and I died.
I've never read one of those books in horror. The only one I ever read was a Titanic, like, get off the ship alive book. I never could. I was always drowning or stuck in the boiler room. Or
So it wasn't an original concept that Goosebumps did. I actually had books from, I don't even know, it was like Apple Scholastic or some generic 80s publicist. And I'm destroying the desk here. I had a bunch of those, and some of them were horror, and some of them were like what I did during summer vacation and stuff like that. But the Goosebump ones were the most fun to read, for sure.
So that would be your pick for...
Yeah, just the choose your own, because I was in control of the story. I am a writer, after all.
There you go. Now. I would have to say Cheese and Die. Have you read that one?
I don't think I read that one, but I remember the cover.
It's the cover. It's the picture of... Just the concept of a killer camera is awesome. Eddie, do you got one?
Yeah.
He's looking up a list over here right now. Both him and Tracy.
Exactly the title of it.
He's like, what's the name of this? Goosebumps. So while they're looking this up, you went and seen the film.
Yeah, I did. Eddie saw the film with me, actually.
Okay, so both... Well, I don't want you to talk, Eddie, because I want you to look up your favorite Goosebump book, so just shut up for a second. What was your thoughts on the movie then?
I thought it was great for a PG kids movie. It kind of embodied. I like that they put a lot of 90s culture in the movie. I feel like, so not just the books, but the actual like type of movies that you would have seen on the Disney Channel during that time.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of did it in that style, and I enjoyed it. I thought the kids who were the main actors did well. Jack Black is always hilarious in everything he does. I thought the premise was interesting. It seemed like something that has been done before, though, where a writer creates these monsters, and then these monsters get out or whatever. That's kind of a tired concept, but...
So I have a little bit of a problem with Goosebumps, and my problem is Jack Black.
Really? I love Jack Black.
I love him in some roles. Like, what was that movie where he gets his fucking arm blown off?
Are you
the
talking
Jackal?
Thunder?
The Jackal. Right?
Oh, no, I haven't seen that.
No, Tropical Thunder.
No, he's in a movie. It's the Jackal. My wife's saying it is. And is it Bruce Willis is playing an assassin, and he's bringing this like computer up and blows Jack Black's arm off. I'm like, yes! Kill him! I don't like Jack Black.
I think the reason why I liked him in this movie is because he was trying to be serious, and he was like, you knew that he was trying to be serious, so he was playing on it. So like, you just do those faces where you're just like, okay.
I did like School of Rock. That was
right, and R.L. Stine actually makes a cameo at the end of the movie, which is kind of funny.
I'm gonna finish. I wanna bring this back real quick, but Eddie, favorite Goosebump book.
One Day at Horrorland. I love that book.
Oh, that's a good one.
I love that book. I love the little TV show they did on it, that TV series on the Goosebumps. But that book was awesome. The cover art, everything about that book was great. Especially with the family just trying to make it out of this damn Horrorland. Like, what the hell is going on here?
So... like theme parks and horror is a classic pairing to where you know some shit's gonna go down and there's gonna be some violent deaths because you have like all this rickety ass equipment that is like it's either gonna be covered with like gangrene or like just gonna slice you open,
like the white roller coaster at Lagoon.
Exactly. Like
I love that white roller coaster.
I'll go on that
and
thing.
then there are people like me who like have fears of like heights or whatever, or like, you know, a lot of people are afraid of roller coasters, so when you put stuff like that, for example, in Zombieland, when they go to the theme park there, that's the scariest part. Not just because there's zombies, but because they approach like this decaying park, and you're like, ugh, this is not going to be good.
Do we really want to go on
you got these crazy zombie clowns.
Right? And
I
like
hate
a dilapidated fun house with a creepy ass entrance that's always like a skull mouth or a clown mouth.
You guys are bringing back like nostalgia for me when we go to like Lagoon and we ride the
yeah.
terror ride.
Oh man,
Dracula's Castle.
Awesome. Dracula's Castle is even more amazing.
I think Dracula's Castle is better, but the terror ride for me, just the colorful letters up top, that little skeleton, like I can have dreams about that thing. Like, ooh, the
I
terror
think
ride.
I like the ride, the actual motion better in the terror ride, but
'Cause it's
the
slower.
aesthetics in Dracula's castle are better because you're in a fucking castle.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Trying to not get off topic. I want to go to Tracy on her favorite Goosebumps book. But wasn't the terror ride being criticized for having BDSM and bondage and stuff? And they wanted to close it
Because
down.
the girl mannequins were like tied up.
I've seen that on the news. I'm like, you guys just chill
well,
out.
they did take the original like painting wall out.
Oh, they did.
The mural.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been
Ah.
in
They
so long.
have it still, but they did take it down.
Terrible. Okay, Tracy.
All right. So I kind of have two-ish. So probably Night of the Living Dummy.
Oh man.
The ventriloquist doll. Like when they turned that into the episode or whatever. That
Mhm.
was terrifying. And I cannot think of the book name, but I know what episode I'm thinking of, and it's the one with like the girl and she puts the mask on.
I think it is
Oh.
just called The Mask.
Is that what it's
I
called?
think it's called
I'm
The
not
Mask.
sure.
With that terrifying green demon
Yeah,
mask.
it was
Yeah,
almost
it's
like
scary.
The Mask with Jim Carrey, but an evil mask.
Right?
Like, ugh.
Like I watched that on Netflix maybe 2 years ago and was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was this scary. Watching it as a kid, it didn't seem so scary, but now it's like, this is terrifying.
Yeah, it was actually called the Haunted Mask.
The
Oh,
haunted
the
mask,
haunted
okay.
mask? Okay, I thought it was just called The Mask, but...
Yo, bringing it back to R.L. Stein real quick. Who's
Yes.
Red? Red Rain.
You've told me about it.
I
It's
haven't
like,
read it,
what
no.
the
It's
hell?
R.L. Stein's. Have you read it, Tracy?
I have not.
R.L. Stein's adult book.
So I heard about this a while ago that he was going to write an adult horror book, but I never followed up with it.
And he
so-
did. I read it. And damn, R.L. Stein, you're a little pervert.
That makes me not want to read it.
I'm
Synopsis, what is this about?
okay, so it's about this lady who ends up in a tropical area and there's a storm. And it comes through and it wipes out this whole region. And she ends up finding these two boys. And they're like, our family they're dead. Everyone died. We don't have anywhere to go. So she adopts them and brings them back to the States with her. Now these two boys turn out to be very evil. And
Evil in like mankind sense, or evil as in like satanic ritual sense?
Almost the satanic
Okay.
ritual.
So like outer worldly evil.
Yeah, you end up figuring out what they are towards the end of the book.
Okay.
And there's a big twist in the book too with the mom that brings these two kids back to live with her husband and two other kids. But the whole time I'm reading this, I'm like, this is really good. R.L. Stein's doing good. Then he adds a couple sex scenes into the book, and I'm like, you think these scenes would be like a page? No, they're like 4 pages and very graphic in nature. That I'm like, R.L. Stein, have you just been writing kids books way too long that you just got to release the beast?
Yeah, he's got some pent up rage.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was at the gym reading this stuff on the elliptical, and I'm just like, what the fuck am I reading?
You like immediately stop. Your heart goes, "Whoa."
Yeah, I'm like, this is the guy that scared me as a kid with
And now he's scaring you as an adult with all this awkward sex
and
stuff.
giving me this all erotic pleasure on a book.
And it's called Red Rain.
Red Rain.
That's making my mind wander.
Well, with
Sex and putting them two together. What's
Yeah,
going
well,
on here?
with Red Rain, the whole concept is when the storm comes through, it actually rains red, like blood.
So it's very literal.
Yes, it is. But it's actually a New York Times best-selling book. You'll have to check it out, Red Rain. And like I said, man, you'll get to that portion with it where you're like, R.L. Stein, you dirty little man.
What am I reading? What's going on?
Pretty much. So, what else do we want to talk about with horror literature?
You kind of mentioned it earlier about how it's overlooked. I think horror pretty much started in literature, so it always amazes me that it gets overlooked. Even when people aren't, like when people tell me they don't read books, I always don't understand that because books are still like a really
Yeah, they're
commodity.
missing out.
Yeah, not only are they missing out, but it's a hot commodity. Like, New York's Best Time list has been around for decades upon decades. So if you are a horror fan and you haven't had a chance to check out some horror literature, you need to. I think it's your duty as a horror kid to at least read one book in the horror genre, because that's the medium it ultimately got started in. And I think the very first, I'm not mistaken, I know I looked this up a while ago, but I think the very first horror literature was something called Varney the Vampire, which was a short mini comic that they published. I want to say.
Go to the computer. Let's find the computer for some knowledge.
Because I know I've looked it up, or at least this was the first vampire story.
Okay,
So,
vampire stories.
Varney,
Now, this is a comic or this is an actual
So
read?
you have to understand, when I say comic, I don't mean today's comics. I mean the old school comics. Like, for example, did you know that back in the 30s and the 20s and before that, porn was actually done in comic style?
Yes, I did.
So it's like there was so much stuff that was done in comic style. That's what I mean.
Who here has seen The Green Mile?
Me.
Who here likes that scene where they find his comic
little
book porn?
comic book.
That's an excellent book to movie.
That is an excellent book to movie, and it's crazy that it's done by Stephen King because it doesn't have very much horror in nature.
But it has paranormal aspects
It
to
does.
it, because, of course, John Coffey, like, he has this mystical power. So, oh my, this is a lot older than I thought it was. Okay, so Varney the Vampire, The Feast of Blood is a Victorian-era serialized gothic horror story by James Malcolm Rymer and Thomas Peckett Priest. Can't pronounce his last name. It first appeared in 1845 to 1847 as a series of cheap pamphlets, the kind then known as penny dreadfuls. So what a penny dreadful is it's a little comic, or illustrated pamphlet rather, not a comic necessarily, that had these stories of mayhem and macabre that you could pick up literally for a penny at the newspaper stand, and they were essentially what torture porns are today. They were trash. Like, you just looked at them for sheer entertainment, just for something to do. You were waiting for the next train or whatever. Like, you read your little penny dreadful. So that was one of the first. It was definitely the first vampire story, but it was among one of the first in horror altogether. I haven't ever found it because obviously it's very hard to find, having been printed so long ago. But there are copies that exist.
Do you guys want to do something a little fun and different to kind of end this episode? Okay. So let's do it this way. I just looked up a quiz for us on horror literature from Goodreads. We'll all vote on what the answer is, and the consensus is what we'll put into the computer and see if we win.
Okay.
So our first question is, in Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Prince of Darkness arrives in England how? On a ship with a dead crew, on a train, via the funeral barrage from France, or he flies in like a bat?
On a ship with a dead.
I'm going to go with whatever Mary's saying on this one.
Since I'm the only one that's actually read the book.
All right. It's not telling me if we got it right or not. I think we're going to figure out in the
We're
end.
going to have to go with
Okay.
it. This is going to be like a real test. We have to wait until the end.
The final scene for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein occurs where? At Frankenstein's castle, on the Scottish moors, aboard a ship in the Arctic, or aboard a ship in the Antarctic?
Aboard a ship in the Arctic. Or, wait, in the Antarctic.
I'm going with Mary's answer on that one, too. It's all like old school horror, man. Give us some new stuff that I can answer.
This is why I started with old school
Henry
literature.
James' 1898 novel, The Turn of the Screw, ends with whose death? Mrs. Gruce,
This one I haven't read.
the housekeeper,
Google.
the narrator. Don't even be trying that. You try that on our drunk trivias at time. Well, on one of them. Flora the little girl, or Miles the little boy. I haven't read this, so I'm going to say let's all go with the narrator.
I'm going to say no, because any
Okay.
good writer would not kill
Fine.
your narrator.
What are we doing then?
I'm going to go with either the little girl or the maid.
Okay.
The housekeeper.
So we got one.
Let's go with, because I feel like the housekeeper probably got killed for being accused of something, kind of like in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So I'm going to go with the little girl.
Tracy?
B. I don't know.
That's the narrator. Fine, we're going on. Eddie?
I'm saying the housekeeper, but
So the housekeeper or the little girl you pick? You're the tie winner on this.
Little girl.
Okay, little girl. Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House features a main character, Eleanor, who spent years doing what? Rearranging her sanity in a hospital, caring for her sick mother, working in a child labor factory, or what's this one say? Begging on the streets.
Kids caring for a sick mother. This is another one I haven't read.
So The Haunting of Hill House features
What
a
was the
main
last
character
I know I've read about it though.
who
So
spent years doing what? Rearranging her sanity, or regaining.
I was like rearranging. That
She's
doesn't sound
rearranging her mind, regaining her sanity. This is like small print, and from back here, I'm like, regaining her sanity in a hospital,
Glasses, Marcus.
caring for her sick mother, working in a child
I'm
labor
gonna say
factory.
caring for the sick mother.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with as well.
Okay, we'll go with that. Tracy?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
Richard Matheson's novel I Am Legend, thank you, features a plague which turns people into what? I know the answer to this. Let's
know
see
the
if
answer.
you
I
guys got
know.
it. Vampires,
Vampires.
raging lunatics, zombies, or tentacle monsters.
Vampires.
There we go. Sweet. The Amityville Horror features a house haunted by the ghosts of the murdered victims who drive the owner to murder his own family. This question doesn't make any sense. Oh, to drive the owner to murder his family too. He does it as well. The house is based in
New York.
California,
New York.
Pennsylvania,
Yeah, New York.
Georgia.
It's New York.
New York's not an option.
New York.
Oh,
It's
then
not an
Pennsylvania.
not an option.
It's
It's
New
New
York.
York.
Like if it's not New York, then it's Pennsylvania. But I'm 99% sure it's New York.
Jeffrey Convit's 1974 horror novel, The Centennial, features a blind priest who sits alone in a rooming house. Why? I've never read this.
I've never heard of this either. What are our options?
He's poor.
He's poor.
He guards the gateway to hell. He's a ghost, or he's a... Will you read that last one for me? I don't know how to pronounce that word. Shallow?
He's a chameleon demon.
Oh, okay, chameleon. I'm like, oh.
Shyamalan.
Yeah, I'm like,
He's a ghost. I'm
not
gonna go
even-
with he's a ghost.
Let's go with he's a ghost. Consensus?
Ghost.
Yeah.
I
Or
was
we
gonna
want
say
the
poor, but
The
whatever.
chameleon
He's,
demon.
so you were going to
That's
say he's
too
poor.
obvious.
Yeah, right.
Why is someone at home? Because they're poor.
I would say-
Duh.
I already answered it. Richard Matheson's Hell House features 4 people hired by a dying millionaire to prove the existence of the supernatural by spending the weekend in a haunted house. One of them, Benjamin Franklin Fisher, is special. Why? He's the lone psychic. He's the lone survivor of a prior investigation. He's the only African American. He's really a she.
I say he's the only psychic. That sounds kind of 13 ghosty.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Tracy's answer on this. They have no
The lone
idea.
psychic.
I'm thinking maybe prior investigation.
I'm thinking Hell House was made into a movie.
It is.
I don't know if I've seen it. Des, what do you think? She has no idea.
She's like,
Should we phone a friend?
We don't have that function
So
yet.
we got he's a lone psychic, or he is the lone survivor of a prior investigation. Are we gonna go with the lone psychic?
I'm gonna go with prior investigator because House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price and the remake had that same concept in it too. So I'm gonna go with that.
And what are you going with, Eddie?
I'm thinking prior investigation.
And Eddie's over here looking it up on Google.
No. I've
All right.
seen the movie The Legend of Hell House.
Okay,
but it's
we went
different
with
from the-
prior investigation. In Anne Rice's interview with the vampire Lestat turns the Indigo planter Lewis into a vampire so he will have a companion throughout eternity. When Lewis threatens to leave Lestat, what does Lestat do? Imprison Lewis? Let him go, but secretly stalk Lewis? give Lewis a vampire dog. Kill a little girl to give Lewis to a companion to care for her.
It's Louis, first of all.
Oh.
Because he is from New
Okay,
Orleans.
yeah, there we go. I thought I was saying that wrong. I've seen the movie.
The French way to spell Louis
seen
is
the movie.
Louis.
Never read the book, and I'm sitting here like, Lewis? I don't think his name is Lewis.
No,
it is
his name is
Louis.
Louis.
So silent S. Okay, so
and Lestat gives him Claudia, which
yeah,
is he kills
I
a
think
little
we
girl.
all know that.
Yeah.
Kirsten Dunst, man.
Stephen King's Salem Lot.
You better get this one right. You just read this book.
No, this was a while ago, but
You still better get it. You read the book.
the main small town of Jerusalem's Lot is taken over by vampires. Of the 5 vampire hunters, Ben, Mark, Dr. Cody, Matt, and Father Callahan, only Ben and Mark escape unharmed. How old is Mark?
Marcus, how old is he?
He's 12.
Alright.
We're going to come back to that. It's going to be
This
wrong.
one's for Mary.
Yeah, this one is for Mary.
Am I reading
Edgar Allan Poe's classic story, The Casket of...
it? Amontillado.
There we go.
It's not cask. It's the cask of Amontillado.
Oh, there we go. I don't know why I said
Do you want me
casket.
to read it?
No, because then... Well, I guess I don't have the answer in front of me anyway, so why don't you just turn the laptop around and face yourself?
Apparently, Marcus struggles with French words,
Well, damn it, this is why I don't read old horror literature.
but it comes in handy when you have a quiz to take, does it not?
Yeah, okay, well, here we go.
Edgar Allan Poe's classic story, The Cask of Amontillado, features a man who walls up his enemy alive. But what is Amontillado? Amontillado is a kind of wine. And you don't need to know the other answers because I know I'm right.
Okay. Continue the quiz for us. You continue.
I get to be the narrator now?
You're the narrator.
I'm the narrator.
My voice is dry.
Ray Bradbury's 1962 novel, Something Wicked This Way Comes, features a haunted carnival and horrific Mr. Dark who offers the teenage boy Jim what? A chance to become older, Susie, the girl of his dreams from math class, fabulous wealth, or electrical powers.
Fabulous wealth. That's mine.
I haven't seen this movie in so long that I have no idea.
Eddie's shaking his head.
I didn't
Tracy.
hear the question.
Ray Bradbury's 1962 novel, Something Wicked This Way Comes, features a haunted carnival and the horrific Mr. Dark, who offers the teenage boy Jim what? A chance to become older? That was the premise of Big. Susie, the girl of his dreams from math class. Fabulous wealth or electrical powers?
I'd say wealth.
I'm going with wealth.
I want to say electrical powers because in the movie there's that... Oh, I'm thinking of a different movie. Never mind.
Well, Eddie,
So Fabulous
tiebreaker.
Wealth. I just went with wealth.
All right, well, we'll
Well.
figure out when we finish this.
In the 1933 horror novel The Werewolf of Paris, the beautiful Sophie tries to cure the werewolf Bertrand Calliot. How? A. Cutting into her own flesh and letting him suck her blood. B. Making him drink a potion of wolfsbane. C. Trying to tying a crucifix to his forehead.
It's gotta be that
Or
one,
D.
right?
Wait for it.
What's D though?
Wait for it. D. Giving him a newborn baby to eat.
I'm going with newborn baby to eat.
I'm gonna go
I'd
with.
say B.
I'm gonna go with B, making him drink
B.
a potion of wolfsbane. Even though I'm pretty sure wolfsbane is what makes you into a wolf.
Okay, well, I'm going with the baby. You guys all note that.
In James Herbert's 19...
How long is this fucking
Yeah,
quiz?
Dude, I don't know, man. 14 out of 15 questions.
Okay, here
We're
we go.
almost there. In James Herbert's 1975 novel, The Fog, a mysterious fog drives people insane, threatening all of England. How is the fog released? A. An earthquake. B. A mad scientist experiment. C. It rises from the sea created by dead pirates. Or D. It's radiation from a nuclear bomb. It rises from the sea.
C
Right.
would be the answer for John Carpenter's The Fog. But when you just explain the premise of it, released by a or that makes the people go crazy, that's not what happens in The Fog. So I'm not going to go with that. I think that's a trick.
So, what do we think a scientific experiment comes from the sea? It's obviously not going to be radiation from a nuclear bomb because that's pretty much every zombie story ever
Yeah.
made. So it's got to be an earthquake, an experiment, or rises from the sea.
I'm going to say it rises from the sea, but I'm not going with the whole thing about pirates, because that is the concept of John Carpenter's The Fog, and I don't remember anyone going crazy in that. It's just pirate ghosts killing people. Last question?
Yes, this is the last question. In Clive Barker's first novel, The Damnation Game, multi-billionaire Joseph Whitehead makes a pact with the supernatural Mr. Mammalian for wealth and power, but Mammalian wants Whitehead to pay the price. The protagonist, Marty Strauss, is Whitehead's bodyguard who agrees to help Whitehead, but Strauss has a big problem. What is it?
I need to read more.
He has one leg. He is a narcoleptic and falls asleep at random. He is himself possessed by the devil, or he has a gambling addiction.
I'm going with these. Got that narcolepsy going on.
Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah.
What's our score?
Okay, hold on. I got to submit it now. This better be one of the things that tell me that we got 9 out of 15 right. We only got 60%.
Man, we
got
are
a D, man.
terrible.
A high C.
High C. And does it say what questions we got wrong?
No, it
No,
doesn't.
damn quiz.
The quiz was weak salsa.
We were weak salsa too, though.
That's true. But it was answering pretty vague questions. That's some really weird answers.
Some pretty weird stuff there. All right, so we just took a quiz. We talked about horror and literature. We've gone over a lot of stuff, comic books.
You know, one thing I hope that doesn't happen to literature is where, with digital technology and tablets and everything, that replace the book.
I know exactly.
I agree. I love having the actual book on the bookcase. There's something about it.
And
again, it's a trophy. I've read this.
I mean, who wants to take a damn tablet and be swiping their fingers, you know?
At the gym.
I've tried to read magazines on my tablet. It does not work. And
it's not the same experience.
Well, not only that, but people who have poor eyesight like myself, it doesn't really help to have it on a small screen and small print.
I will agree with Tracy, though. Not that I want to see, the
physical book
go away, which I think it will eventually, which will suck. But at the gym, reading a book, trying to run sucks ass.
Bouncing up in your face and...
But in a tablet that I could just place right there on the treadmill. But then I have that nightmare of the tablet falling and I'm running and I step on it and it goes flying. I've seen this at times at the gym.
I don't know why can't you just get a book and set it on the treadmill like that too? Like if you just took paper clips and paper clipped it open and just sat it down.
When you're running at 6 miles an hour, you don't paper clip shit.
If you're gonna run, I suggest you just listen to music.
Or read audiobooks.
Yeah.
That's not how I get my reading in, guys. Okay, I gotta finish it at the gym. I gotta exercise my brain and my body, and I don't know. I have this weird thing.
So
Leave me alone.
Particular and you're just
I am. Okay, so you guys just be quiet. But so, I mean, do you think, honestly, let's say 30 years from now, do you guys think books will still be around?
I do.
They will, but they won't be produced.
What do you mean? If they're not produced, they're not around.
What I mean is they'll be digitalized, everything will be released digitally.
And you'll have to special order for $40 the paperback version.
For example, nobody thought video games would always have a physical disc, and now it's getting replaced by digital.
Yeah, digital download.
That is a good point. I think as long as, because as weird as it sounds, the paper industry is actually quite large. So I think as long as people are writing on paper, they'll also have the option to print books on paper as well. Because, I mean, how long did they put stuff on VHS before that finally went away? Even though DVD, it took almost 5 or 10 years after it took 10 years after the launch of DVDs for VHS to go away, but it took an additional 5 years after that where everybody had a DVD player for them to totally be, to go extinct that way. Books might be the same way.
So do you think, are we in agreement that books will never go away, but it's going to be a nostalgic item? You have to pay a lot more for the book?
Maybe they won't. They'll offer, you can choose what you want your format to be. Because that's what a lot of places are doing now anyway. So I think if they do, it's just going to be print on demand. It's not going to be they're going to print 50 copies to
and
ship
stores
to Barnes and
will
Noble.
only carry like a low percentage of
Barnes and
copies.
Noble will go from this huge little thing to about the size of our studio.
But that's another
Well,
thing
you
you have
walk
to
in-
take in consideration, though, is because Barnes & Noble is so big, and they obviously have a lot of stock as well. So the bigger the company, the less likely their mediums.
But
can
yeah,
go.
so when you walk into Barnes and Noble, the first thing you see is that damn Nook. They're like, Nook HD.
Did you know Barnes and Noble actually doesn't own any of the books in the store? Am I right, Des? They're all placed there and rented. They pretty much rent their shelf space. Desiree used to be like a manager at Barnes and Noble before she got all
That's interesting.
into stuff. But yeah, they basically are a huge store with all this stuff. But the books, they don't actually own the copies, and they send back copies all the time. Like, it's not selling in our store. We don't want it here anymore.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense.
So
Even still, though, as long as there's stores to house those, they're gonna fill them. It's not all gonna be digital because that's the problem with the digital era now, is that a lot of brick and mortar stores are going out of business because there's online stores, and that doesn't require an actual presence.
But vinyl's making a comeback like no other.
Vinyl's making a comeback solely because it looks cool, and you can
Hey, you get cool posters. You get all these cool extra stuff.
we've already had this
I've
discussion,
had
me
this
and Marion.
discussion with everybody. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Like, there really isn't there really isn't that much of a difference in sound. And
I don't think so either. I don't think vinyl's this. We're
I
like
just buy
really
it for
off
the
books
cool
right here for the
cover
last 10
Right.
minutes, but we've talked enough about literature and books. But you know, I would have to agree. I don't think vinyl has this epic sound that only can be heard on vinyl. You know, we could make a CD sound shitty too.
It's not that. It's the fact that it takes up so much more room, and I have to flip it over. Like, that was the beauty of CDs, is that you just put it in and you let it play.
You haven't had a real struggle until you met Laserdisc. You're watching a movie and you gotta flip that big disc over to watch your second.
Hey man, I remember watching Titanic on VHS 2 tapes.
Oh man, that
Right.
sucked.
Well,
And the Green Mile.
And the Green
My
Mile.
elementary made us watch movies on Laserdisc. 'Cause
Same here.
I went to school on the west
Hang
side.
on. We can't forget Beta.
Beta, like, it barely had a chance to survive.
Well, it was kind of like the Blu-ray HD
Well,
thing.
actually,
Remember
Beta
that?
was like the standard for a long time for newscast and everything.
It was Beta, and then VHS stole the formula. But the reason VHS took off is because of the porn industry. Because all the porn production companies would not
because you
release
can go
the
low
movies.
budget now.
No, they would not release movies on
The
Beta
Cryptic
anymore.
Porn
They would
Show.
only do it on VHS because VHS asked them to partner with them, and so that's why VHS took out Beta. They were essentially the same thing, and the Betas were smaller. They were like this big and had one wheel. That's right, Marcus. Eddie and I are that old enough.
Yeah,
to know what
you
it
guys
is.
are some old motherfuckers. Cause I know Beta exists, but only because of Wikipedia.
Do you know what else I know exists and I've touched with my own hands is 8 tracks.
You know
Yeah,
what's crazy with
nah.
Beta machine is how you had to go from play to stop, then to rewind, and then you always had to push stop. You couldn't just jump from like play to rewind because then the machine would jam up because it was all mechanical.
Me and Tracy are sitting like, we don't have this struggle. We remember DVDs.
Yeah.
VHS was already on its way out when we were growing up.
Marcus remembers the days of wearing out his backdraft VHS tape.
I am a backdraft addict. Yep.
That was the bad thing about VHS right there, was wearing out the tape.
It was
Yeah.
really, well, no, I'm not getting on
That's
that.
how you knew if it was somebody's favorite movie, like where
Or,
the tape
or,
was worn out.
or some 12-year-old's favorite scene.
Yeah.
Gross.
So good, and then grainy quality, then so good.
What happened to the tape? I don't know.
No. Some dust got in there.
Gross. And the moment your tape broke of your favorite movie, you're like, no!
Yeah.
You know the one thing I do like about VHS that I miss, and that like Blu-ray and DVD I don't think capitalize on, is, do you guys remember like and this was like huge in the horror movie VHS realm, was they used to do like
Snow
covers
globes.
that, well, they would do like
Yeah.
covers that were like, ooh, look at this,
Yeah.
you turn
like
it
the
a certain
3D
way.
Covers,
Or they had
What
like the
is that,
big
like
box
hydroglyphic?
VHS.
Yeah, I think that's what it's
or
called.
like
Yeah.
the,
Like
the
the Pokemon
hologram.
cards?
Yeah.
Yeah. and it's like holographic. Or and like you would
like that.
turn the VHS.
Or
Yeah.
like Eddie said, they'd have these big elaborate boxes.
Like monsters. Fun.
Yeah.
Jesus, I remember those.
I
like,
always hated going to like movie buffs, which is way old school
Yeah.
for those of you that grew up
Movie
in West
buffs.
Valley.
I remember movie
You remember
buffs.
movie buffs, yo, right?
I grew up in West Jordan. We had Video Shark, man.
Yeah.
We had movie buffs and Slurpees right next to each other. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But going there or going to Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, going to the horror section and just basing your choice off of like the cover. And getting like the coolest cover you could find. You're like, no, we're gonna watch this one. And then the movie was awful. Like it had nothing to do with the cover, and you're just like, why? Why would somebody do this?
I honestly still try to do that, though. I still try to pick movies based on cover art, and I try to not like go on Google and be like, what's the IMDb rating on this one, or what's the Rotten Tomatoes, like,
Is
because
that how you picked Rubber?
yes, and I love Rubber, so shut the hell
awesome
up.
movie.
Wait, so one of my coworkers, like, and Dennis, if you're listening, this is for you. He showed me that, and he's like, "Can you believe they made this?" And he was being like sarcastic, of course. But when I watched it, I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's a killer tire! Like, you can't get much better than that."
Did you enjoy Rubber?
I
Yeah,
haven't watched it. But
Oh.
I want to
Rubber's
now.
awesome.
Did anyone see the beaver one where it was like killer beavers?
Killer Beaver, Zombie Beavers.
Yes!
Yes, I've seen that
I
too.
wanted to see
It's
that. I'm like, it's gonna be terrible. and I
it
love
is.
it.
It's so terrible. It's good, just like Rubber. And we got Tracy over here, is like classically trained. Like
Always gotta make fun of me. on that.
I love Rubber. I just
Yeah.
you know.
I just from the previews, like the camera angles of the giant tiger, I'm like, this is brilliant.
And if Alex
Watch
is
it.
listening to this show too, I don't care, man. I like Rubber. I know you hate it, but I like it. Oh, we
I'll
got
be the
5 minutes.
I'll be the final judge on Rubber when I finally watch
You gotta
it.
watch it. It's the most
Like, it's
epic
amazing.
tire movie. If it was a book, it would be pretty lame, though.
Can I say one thing
What?
that
Sure.
I've been thinking about this whole time? So when you were reading The Raven,
Yeah.
all I could think about was that Treehouse of Horror
Yes.
Simpsons
Oh,
episode
yeah.
with Homer and Bart is the Raven.
Yes.
And I was out there, I'm like, yes, that was all I could think about.
I-
'Cause that just came to mind. I can't hear that poem without thinking of that Simpsons episode.
I was actually thinking of it while I was reading it. Like I was all, this is the part where Homer does this.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's actually I'm glad you mentioned that, because if there are people out there who haven't seen The Simpsons and haven't seen that episode, you need to YouTube it right now, because it's
It is
awesome.
so
There are
worth your
people
time.
out there that haven't seen The
Apparently
Simpsons.
there are.
Well,
I don't
that
know how it
Treehouse of
happens.
Horror.
Were they hiding
Well, that was
under
me
a
with
rock?
the boy last night. I was hiding under a fucking rock. I didn't realize that Laura,
Lauren Cohen
yeah.
was Maggie on The Walking Dead. Yes. She
But yeah, true. People live under rocks like me.
Well, if you haven't seen it, people need to check it out because it's awesome. And just check out all of the Treehouse of Horrors, especially
you can't
the
go
Bart
wrong.
Simpson's Dracula,
Yeah.
or Mr. Burns' Dracula.
Yes!
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You need to check that one out too, because it's a fun adaptation.
Have you guys read any of the autobiographies out there in the horror world?
I've heard of a lot of them and read a lot of overviews, but I haven't sat down to read one.
Haven't sat down and read one yet.
But there's a
Read
lot of
The
them.
Chainsaw Confidential by the late Gunnar Hansen. If you have not read that and you're a fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it will open up your eyes and you'll see how painstakingly hellish and crappy the conditions were that they had to go through to make this film. When I was reading that book, I'm just like, really? No wonder you guys were insane in the movie. You were in insane conditions.
Right. And that's something a lot of people don't realize, is that the horror genre didn't get a lot of love until probably about the 70s and 80s when they started doing the franchises. So a lot of actors wouldn't do a horror film. It was like, oh, I don't want to be seen in that, because usually there were low production values and a lot of unsanitary conditions,
Yeah,
for
right.
lack of a better word.
Or like illegal shoots. Like, we're not really supposed to be shooting here.
So we couldn't get the permit, but if we do it really fast, we can get
We
it done
can,
right
yeah,
now.
and no one will
Yeah.
care.
And for that matter, if anyone out there has not seen Plan 9 from Outer Space by Ed Wood, I highly recommend that too. Speaking of low production values.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're about to the tail end of our show. Let's do a little outro. We had
Tracy.
from. Where are you guys from?
Sorry, I gotta plug us in, of course. This is Tracy from Horror Junkies of Utah.
Awesome, and I have Eddie.
From West Valley.
This fool's not like fucking. I'm not gonna plug the thing I do. I'm from West Valley. Well, you know, I'm from Magna. Came from West Jordan.
Well, we plugged it last time.
You got to plug it again. You keep plugging along.
So this is Mary Mortem here, speaking with 3 of the members of Horror Junkies, Marcus, Eddie, and Tracy.
Pretty much. And I am Marcus, and you guys need to go read a good horror story today. And also, this episode will be on YouTube later, so you guys can recap everything. Any little other things?
Just check out my book. I will post the link. Check out Horror Junkies of Utah. If you have read an amazing book and you think Marcus or I should check it out, please let us know and comment on Facebook. Thank you all for listening, and be sure to tune in next week, same time, same place, for all your horror needs.
Definitely. You guys have a wonderful night.
Thanks for listening.
Stay scary.